Hey, what's up, guys? I'm gonna be talking with you guys today on the grace of God. And that grace is His undeserved, unmerited favor. It's also His power that gives you strength to do things that you couldn't do alone in your own ability. And this is a subject that, you know, we as people, we really have to grasp, because if we don't know the true promises and the grace that we are under, then we're going to continue to condemn ourselves and be feel guilty about things that we've done. And this, and so what I'm going to be reading from is from the book of Hebrews. And the book of Hebrews is talking about, it's comparing the old covenant, which was the Ten Commandments. It refers to the old covenant as the law. The Ten Commandments, the Bible refers as to the law. And it's comparing that covenant as opposed to the new covenant, which was formed by the sacrifice of Jesus, and which is grace, and this is what we are under now. We're under the grace of God, His mercy and His favor. That's what we're under because of what Jesus has done. So it's comparing the two, and what it's stating is, basically the what the new covenant has brought to us now as opposed to the old covenant. So I'm gonna read from Hebrews chapter 8, verse 10, and just finish out the chapter from there. It says, "For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith the Lord, I will put my laws into their minds and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor, every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for all shall know me, from least to the greatest. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and iniquities I will remember no more." And that he says, a new covenant. He has made the first one old. The first covenant now, which decays and is old and ready to vanish away. Okay, so let's back up to that first part. The first part says, I will put my laws into their mind, and I will write them on their hearts. So what he's saying is, the same laws that you saw on stone, the same Ten Commandments that you saw on stone, they're no longer going to be in stone. Now I'm going to put them, because of what Jesus did, I'm going to put them in your mind. I'm going to put them in your heart. So, in the next part says, they shall not teach every man his neighbor, know the Lord. So what he's saying is, you're not going to need anybody else to tell you whether you're doing right and wrong, or to tell you, what you're doing you shouldn't be doing. He's saying, no, they're in your mind now. They're in your heart. So you're going to know what you're doing is not right. You're going to know what you're doing is wrong. You're going to know what you're doing is right. You're going to know what you're doing, was not right. That's what he's saying. You're going to know yourself. You don't need anybody else to tell you that. But, let's stop right there. How many times have we've always had people sometimes tell us, hey, what you're doing is not right. What you're doing is not right. Well, first of all, a lot of times the people that are telling us these things, they're struggling with the same things we're struggling with. They're not perfect, neither are we. But we also don't need other people to tell us. If we're a selfish person, you don't need nobody to tell you to be selfish. At the end of the day, you could be whoever you want people to think you are in public, but when you get home behind those closed doors, you know whether what you struggle with. Don't nobody have to tell you what you struggle with. That's what he's saying. He's saying you got a conscience now, so you know yourself. Nobody else has to tell you. But verse 12 says, "For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities I will remember no more." So he's saying, I'm going, in spite of your downfalls, I'm going to be merciful to your deeds. I'm going to be merciful. So if you mess up, I'm still going to have mercy on you. I'm still going to forgive you. That's what he's saying. I forgive you. And why, so you have people saying, well, what does that mean? Why would he be merciful? Why, I just did, look what I did last night. Look what he did last night. God forsook Jesus on the cross. God punished Jesus on the cross. so he would not punish you. That's why he's not going to hold him again. If he held it against you, it would be he would be dishonoring what Jesus did. Because the whole point was, he said, Jesus, you're going to have to die for those people. And so as people, we have to get an understanding of what Jesus really did. Because the whole, so let me back this up as well too, because what a lot of people say, well, so, does that mean you can't live a holy life? Doesn't mean you're not supposed to live, you're just giving people a license to sin. No, that's not what it means at all. Because, first of all, people are going to sin without a license regardless. People are going to do what they want to do regardless. But God is a holy God. He wants you to live holy. But it's not that he wants you to live holy for him. He wants you to live holy for you. So you don't condemn yourself. So your heart doesn't condemn you. So your mind doesn't condemn you. So for instance, if we do something we know we ain't got no business doing. The first thing we do is, oh no, I remember what I did last night. I can't go to church tomorrow. Oh, I remember what I did last night. No, I can't read the Bible. I can't ask God for forgiveness because what I did was too bad. No, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to come to God for that. And that's where Satan starts to say, okay, yeah, you remember what you did last night? No, you can't come to God. Well, the times that we do mess up, those are the times that we need to come to him. Those are the times that he wants you to lean on him so he can show you his power. In those impossible situations that we go through because we messed it up ourselves, those are the times where God wants to show himself strong in your life. That's what he's saying. So, because he knows that if we mess up, the first thing we're going to think is that, oh, we're not ready. We're not good enough. Our lifestyle hasn't lived up to what God's standards are. And God is saying, no, I understand that. I knew they weren't going to live up to my, I'm too holy for you. That's why I sent Jesus on the cross. So every time you mess up, instead of punching you in the face, I punch Jesus. Jesus was God's punching bag that day, so that he wouldn't hold your sins against you. Because that's the first thing we want to do. It's never, God, he just said it. He said, I'm going to be merciful to you. And it can go all the way back to the story. If you look in the book of John, there's a story of a woman. And she's a prostitute. Okay? She committed adultery. And the Pharisees, the people in the Bible refers to the Pharisees as the hypocrites. The people that were trying to live up under the law, trying to be perfect, but they weren't perfect. But they were trying to make sure everybody else needed to be perfect. And we probably could relate to that now. How many times have, people probably came up to us and said, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, knowing that they didn't have it all together. Or how many times have you may have been the person that trying to point out somebody else's downfalls, knowing that at the end of the day, you're not perfect either. You mess up too. We do that a lot because we don't have an understanding that God is merciful to everything. So now back to the story. Well, the Pharisees, in those days, the Pharisees, you got stoned. If you sinned, you got stoned to death. So they're getting ready to stone this woman. And so before they got ready to stone this woman, or they were stoning him, but they were going to stone him to death. And then Jesus came along, and they asked Jesus, said, hey, look at this woman. She's committed adultery. What now? And they asked Jesus this question because they wanted to get him, they wanted to catch him, they wanted him to condemn this woman. So now they had something to capture Jesus with. Now they had something to get him with. So Jesus stopped for a second. He said, okay, now which of you who has no sin be the first person to cast the stone? In other words, he's saying, I want the person who has never sinned before, throw a stone at her. Throw a stone. And you know what they did? All the Pharisees, the hypocrites, they dropped their stones and they left because they knew they were falling short themselves. They knew they had messed up themselves. And the next part is the more powerful part of that. the next part, Jesus picked up the woman. And he said, "Woman, has anyone condemned you?" And she said, "No." And he said, "Neither do I condemn you. Now go and sin no more." So he's saying, me, Jesus, a man, I don't condemn you either. They didn't condemn you because they knew they were messing up. I'm not condemning you. Now you don't condemn yourself. Now go and sin no more. So here's the key. First he said, don't condemn yourself, because that's the first thing we want to do when we sin, is condemn ourselves. I messed up. I can't do it now. No, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. Saying, stop condemning yourself. Now go and sin no more. See, nowadays, us people, we have it backwards. Sometimes the church, we have it backwards. We say, don't sin first, then don't condemn yourself. When Jesus said, no, don't condemn yourself, because I'm not condemning you. Now go and sin no more. See, when you condemn yourself, you end up sinning more. When you feel guilty about doing something, you end up doing it more. It's when you have a guilt-free conscience. It's when you have a condemnation-free conscience that you will eventually find yourself having power and dominion over sinning. You won't sin anymore because you understand what Jesus did for you on the cross. You understand, man, this guy died for me. Every time you feel guilty about something you did, every time you do something and you feel guilty, that's exactly what Satan wants. Because he's saying, now that you feel guilty, now he attacks your mind and says, hey, remember what you did last night? You can't come to God with that. Remember what you did this morning? You can't remember what you said this morning? God don't want that. That's what he wants to say to you. And God is saying, no, I knew you were going to do that. Come to me so I can help you fix it. Because remember, true change cannot be made by your effort. Because if true change comes by your effort alone, it has to be maintained by your effort. Okay? True change comes by God's effort. Because God remains the same. His love for you is constant every single day. He remains the same every day. So, that's when true change comes, when you allow God to change you and stop trying to do it yourself. And so I just wanted to encourage somebody out there and say, hey, seek out and see what Jesus really died for you about. See what he did on that cross. See the torment and the anguish that God gave to Jesus so that he wouldn't give it to you. And when you get a revelation on all that, I guarantee you, and you allow God to lead you in the direction that you need to go, and you'll find yourself in the place that God meant for you to be when he predestined your end from the beginning. All right? You guys take care. Love you. Be blessed.